Thank you and welcome back to Race Industry Week 2023. Our producer, Reed Keneski, is in touch with Richard's team right now. They're trying to log him in. He's having a little technical challenge, but he should be with us any second. Mr. Hammond, what a great session.
Hey, Francis, I have somebody special right next to me, so let me get out of the way.
Ooh, who could that be?
Hi, guys.
Hi.
Well, Francis, I was getting ready to say when Richard gets here, the king will be here, but I should bow to the queen of racing, Linda Bond.
Thank you, Jeff.
How you doing, Linda?
Bonjour, Francis. I'm doing
Bonjour, Linda.
Now, wait a cotton picking minute. You guys are not going to start doing that French deal between the two of you, are you?
Un petit peu en français, mon chéri. Je t'aime à toi ce soir.
This is not fair. This is not fair. I protest. We were set and we were supposed to be all English. It's supposed to be all English. Don't do this to me.
How y'all doing?
We're doing great. Yeah, that's better. How y'all doing? I like that. Oh, man.
Well, I can't do that, but I'll let you do it.
You can't do the y'all part, Francis? Come on now.
Come on, you can say bonjour and you can say hello.
Yeah, you know.
Hi, y'all.
No, thank you, Linda.
In Southern English. Hi, y'all.
Yeah, I can try. I'll try. But no, thank you for being with us today. You're the star of the week. We're going to have you twice. We're going to have you twice.
Yeah,
looking forward to it.
I know that.
The King's having a hard time getting through. I sure hope we get through because I can tell some stories on The King and I. That's a movie.
Now, wait a minute. Now, there was a movie called The King and I.
That's right.
Let's leave the movie and let's don't be bringing this into real life, okay?
Jeff, I'm sorry I didn't get your address, but I have those pictures for you. So I make sure I get your address before I leave today, okay?
Well, I appreciate that. Francis, Linda and I were in Chattanooga a few weeks ago and had a chance to, talk and cut up a little bit. And it really turned out to be, once again, I could not believe how good the event got in 1 year.
It was lovely. It was a little cold, but you know what? The cars were beautiful. The people were great. And so many of our friends were there. And it's such a good cause because, I go to a neuroscientist myself with some of my injuries that I've had. And I just love helping those doctors back there. So I hope we get to do it again next year. I
do too. And, Ray Everingham, he helps me, he brings me along with him. And
absolutely.
I really enjoyed that, and Billy Ryan was up there with a lot of stock cars. And
wasn't that great?
The history of the stock cars, because you were actually signing right there with the 442 Oldsmobiles you had.
Oh, those were two Hearst Oldsmobiles.
Yeah,
and we got big block.
Here is Mr. Petty.
Okay, here's Richard.
Can you hear us okay, Richard?
A little bit.
All right. We'll talk loud then. How you doing, my friend?
Doing great, man. Kind of cold down here. Other than that, we're doing great.
Well, I know what you mean. It's a little chilly outside. That's the reason why you're wrapped up. That's the one thing I like about what you do is that scarf you wear regularly. You really turned that into an accessory that makes it good for me to wear because I said, man, if the King can wear that, I can wear that. You know what I mean?
When it's this cold, you need it, man. That's for sure. I'm getting ready for Christmas, so I'm getting my Christmas colors out.
Well, that's a good thing. That's a real good thing. Hey, Richard, let's just jump right on into this here because both of you can speak to this. And that is, we just, we're celebrating 75 years of NASCAR. What has this year meant to you? Because I know that they played a lot of your highlights and showed your dad and your brothers and stuff like it, and a lot of stuff that I have seen when they've done kind of like a walk back through history. What is your feelings right now about that? Did you learn anything? Do you remember something that you'd forgotten?
If I could remember what I forgot, it'd be smart. But, yeah, the big deal was that I went to the very first Cup race they had in Charlotte in 1949, and the Petties has been going ever since. We grew up with NASCAR, and you know, it's changed so much. It's just it's kind of hard to recognize what happened back then, and seeing all the years and all the changes and all the things that's come about over a period of years. So, and you know, everything has to change. So NASCAR had to keep up with the day's deal. They couldn't run just stock cars, because they found out right quick they wouldn't work. So then they started modifying, and they kept modifying it, changing it, trying to make a race car out of it. And finally, a couple of years ago, or a year ago, they just give up on the original car and just designed a completely different race car. So our cars are more like sports cars, stuff like that. It's kind of a kit car now. So it's got a long way from. They can't call it stock car racing anymore. It has to be NASCAR racing.
I understand that right there. And Linda, I mean, what was your first remembrance of and your opportunity to really be around the sport of NASCAR? Did you start with NASCAR?
Yes,
or did you start with drag racing?
No, I started in NASCAR. I was Miss Atlanta 500 and met Richard in 1961. We have grown up together, literally our careers together. And I've enjoyed it all, but I started in NASCAR. I won Miss Atlanta International Raceway in 1961. And they took me down to Daytona to ride in the parade of the visiting pace cars. And I saw that Miss Firebird float. And so I tried out, and I ended up winning that the following 45 years. I was Miss Firebird for the Corolla Company. And then I met the Hearst Company, and then I entered that contest. So it just snowballed, and I'm still working. Believe it, at this age, Richard and me still work, don't we, Richard?
Right, we do.
Yeah, we do.
The big deal, I've never considered it work. It was love.
It is love, you know, and that's why I love you so much. It is love. It really is.
So that's just part of your being. That's part of your DNA, I guess.
Yeah, I think it is. It's in my blood for sure.
Let me ask you something, Linda. 1959, you was at Columbia, South Carolina. What was you doing there? You remember?
My stepdaddy and my mother lived in Swansea, South Carolina. And I slipped off and went up and met your daddy and walked in the middle of the racetrack. I was a youngin' then. I was real young. And we walked across, went over there and watched y'all race. And that was fantastic. I got stars in my eyes and dirt in my hair, and I loved every minute of it.
I remember that's the first time I remember Linda.
Yeah, thank you for refreshing my memory.
It was a convertible race.
Yeah, it was a convertible race.
Sometime in July or something. Anyhow, I wound up winning the race.
Yeah, he did.
Somehow she got in the winner's circle.
Because they asked me to.
You know, I don't know how she done it, but she was there. I do remember that.
Yeah, well, I'm so happy that you remember that. Thank you.
You're already lying to me, Richard, because you say you can't remember stuff like that, and you remember the date and the place and, you know, the moment.
It was the kiss.
Is
it selective memories? Is it just certain things like that are just etched in your head?
Probably selective memory, you know.
Yeah.
But if it's real serious, I can't remember.
You know,
that's not what I.
You're talking and about something. The history of this sport. I mean, we got a chance, like I say, to see a lot of history of the sport this past year. NASCAR did a really good job of, you know, and our television partners and the racetracks of bringing back moments, you know, which you were including because you know you were so successful. Do you think that we need to conscientiously do this on a regular basis? Because, you know, there's a lot of people that said, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. It's almost like NASCAR was rediscovered by a lot of families this year who have children because they didn't remember the history, because we don't talk about the history. It's almost like, okay, it's history. Don't worry about it. Move on. But when we brought it back in front of them, they like what they saw.
You got to figure, you know, NASCAR started, Cup stuff started in 49. And Wilkesboro was one of the first races. So we came back to on their 75th anniversary, NASCAR went back to Wilkesboro. And I think that was a good thing to do because you can't have 75 years without some history, but you got to tell the history because everybody knows what's happened the last year or two, but they don't understand what happened in 1950 or 55 or any of that stuff. So bringing back something like that, I think they tried to do that by running dirt at Bristol, but that's not the way to do it. If it come back to Concord or somewhere and run one of the original dirt tracks, it would have been great, but they didn't. But coming back to Wilkesboro, I think that was great, and I think that would be good for them to pursue things like that. Some of the racetracks that we don't run on now is go run an exhibition race or something like that, just to remind everybody that we've been here 75 years.
Well, you know, I did straight A's in history, Richard, and I love the history. And I was the first girl in the shop class, and I learned all about NASCAR, everything I could before I even went to my first race. And I think it was wonderful watching that 75th anniversary there because the kids today need that because you got these young guys in college and just getting out of school that wants to take their trade and come into the motorsports, like our Spark program. And history is valuably important for our future. You teach the history, then you go into the future. So we'll have a future for the young generation.
To have a future, you had to have a history.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. Well, and I'm glad you brought that up when you mentioned North Wilkesboro. Another racetrack, it's not that far from where you reside, Rockingham. A racetrack like that, I mean, does it not hold value in the history of the sport? And they're always talking about some of these cookie cutter tracks we go to, we got too many of them, and so they try to fix them or change them so they're not quote unquote cookie cutter. But you got a track like Rockingham sitting right there that's basically going to waste.
It really is. They modernized the racetrack. They've been trying to get NASCAR to come back, and it would be a nice place to run an exhibition race, even if we didn't run. But you got to figure places like Wilkesboro and Rockingham went away because we had to go to Texas or California or Illinois with the race dates. So they lost the dates. And so there again, NASCAR was trying to spread the word, I guess. And some of the guys just had to bid to dust. And it would be nice to be able to see some of those come back just to tell us where we come from so that we could go to California, Texas, or somewhere.
Well, I read something where you made the comment about how you felt about Nashville fairgrounds.
Yeah.
And, share with us how you kind of feel about that. I mean, that's a racetrack you're kind of high on.
Right. Yeah. And you got to figure Nashville, there was a bunch of Cup drivers that come through there. Allison used to run there all the time. That's where Darrell got his start, more or less. Cuckoo and that crowd, they all came, they run some races, and they come and run Cup stuff. So it's got so much history. The racetrack's been there since 1904 in some way, shape, or form. They've changed the track a bunch of times, and but still, yet the history of it, I just hate to see the history of anything that's been here that long go away. If it's not been here for 20 or 30 years, yeah, okay, that's not got no history. But something that's been here 100 years, I think it ought to be preserved.
Yeah.
Well, if we keep going, Richard, we're going to be here 100 years.
I hope both of you are. And I'm here doing the interview. Yeah.
I'm going to stay around just long enough to aggravate people. I think that's
I'll be with you.
Okay, we're giving you this much in racing. Now go out and aggravate a bunch of people. So I'm having a good time doing that.
Well, I was going to say this, talking about history, I still go to the racetrack every now and then. I'll be going a lot more next year. But when I go to the racetrack, and then at the same time, I've run across you at the shop the other day, you and Dale Lemon, but you guys go to the racetrack still a lot. I mean, you're seen around the racetrack. Why? I mean, what is Richard Petty getting out of it today? I mean,
you know, some of the racing deals and the way they run things, maybe I don't like. Okay. But I knew things had to be changed. But I still got my DNA is Petty Blue. Okay. You know what I mean? I guess I can't get it out of me. And Dale's the same way. It gives us entertainment. It gives us stuff to talk about during the week because again, we look at history. This is where we came from, guys. You know, we don't know any better. So we got to go and sort of find out what's going on today or, you know, tomorrow. And, you know, we're looking forward to getting this season started off, I guess, in February. And, you know, looking at maybe going some more races this year than what we did last year. See what happened? We went to all the races and then COVID come along and they wouldn't let us go to the races.
Yeah.
And so we kind of got out of the habit. But once I started back, I think I went to more races this year than I did last year because I'm getting back in the groove, I guess.
yeah, I hear you.
You know, I know where I came from. I just don't know where I'm going because I'm going to be doing the same thing, Richard. I will see you at Daytona for sure.
The main thing is keep going, okay? You know.
Yeah, you got to keep going, and there's no doubt about that. And you know, you've referenced this a couple times as far as the DNA, Petty Blue. I had the privilege of just about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, I was at an event you had at your museum in Randleman. Great function. Had a golf court, had a golf tournament go along with it, but the museum, I mean, it's a number one, like, you know, it's one of the top 10 attractions in the state of North Carolina to begin with. But I also want to talk about the Petty Garage. It's not just the history. It's what's happening today and being done today under, once again, the Petty banner.
Yeah, what happened, you know, my dad started everything here in 1949. So if you go to a museum, you usually go to a new museum and they, you know, got chandeliers, they got everything all fancy and they move the stuff. Well, we just didn't move anything. Everything is still here, the original shop, original floor, all that kind of stuff. But, you know, we was going along with Petty Enterprises and then we kind of sold a little bit of it and got out of that part of it. And so we had some boys here that worked for us for 15, 20, 30 years, and they didn't want to have to get another job or travel anywhere. So I had 3 or 4 race cars that I wanted to fix back up so we could put them in the museum. So the first thing you know, we were back there working around. Here comes somebody and says, "Hey man, can you modify my car? Can you do something to it?" So the first thing you know, we rebuilt T models here. Anything that you got, they bring them in baskets, and our boys back there take them and make cars back out of. And we do a lot of new car stuff where people want a bigger engine, more horsepower, they want bigger brakes, you know, different mufflers, you know, whatever they want to do. We've got a paint shop here. We do fancy paint jobs. Anything you want done to your car that you can think about, then Petty's Garage can do it. And, you know, we're trying to expand that deal. We got 3 or 4 old race cars back there that people's dug out of the bank somewhere and they bring them in here and we refurbish them. We make them back as stock as we can because we can go look at some of our race cars and go back to the 1950s, 1970s or 60s, whatever, and make the cars pretty authentic. And the basic big deal, if they bring in the majority of the pieces, no matter where they rested or whatever, we can make new pieces and make it look like it's an original set.
I
it's
stockpiled a bunch of original old stock. I got a whole bunch of shifters that I saved in my garage. And every once in a while, one of my friends is rebuilding something like that Plymouth he wanted. I had that slapstick shifter for it, original old stock, still in a box. So I would go into a lot of these speed shops and pick up the things that they still have left that they haven't sold. And I think that was a very wise move, and especially the younger kids want to know all about it, Richard. I think that's wonderful. You got that restoration shop.
Yeah, it works really good. I mean,
Yeah.
and we still got a bunch of parts. We know people that's got different parts for Fords or Chevrolets or Pontiacs, whatever it may be. So it might take a while to get everything together, but they usually can get it all together.
No, again, that's one of the things that I was impressed by, and then talking to your crew around there that, you know, it's growing, and, you know, you're able to, you know, you got
Yeah.
some needs for some, you know, some skilled labor. I mean, used to be in racing, if you wanted a welder, all you had to do is just turn and say, hey, come over here, Joe, and weld this for me. But now people are looking for skilled welders. They're not raised, you might say, on the farm like it was back in the good old days. I mean, you learn by trial and error, and somebody else who knew how to weld teaching you how to weld. And I've heard some stories about some of your welding. What was your view about it? Were you a good welder, or was everybody saying that chicken scratch you used to put on there wasn't very good?
I don't know how good a welder I was. Nothing ever fell off that I welded. So, might not look too pretty, but it stuck, and that was the main thing.
It worked.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say you trusted it enough to put yourself in amongst it, right?
Yeah, I might not have trusted anybody else, but I trusted myself. You know, but we had good people here over the years that worked here 30, 40 years. That worked in the fab shop, and you know, right now the way the race cars are, you really don't need a fab shop because you have to buy everything to put on the car. So, you know, from that standpoint, it took a lot of ingenuity away from a bunch of talented people, and they got to find a different way to use their art. And I always felt like a fabricator was an artist. In other words, you just draw him up a picture and say, you know, we not got a computer, we not got any of this planning and stuff. You know, you just go do it. This is what I want to look. This is what I want to look like. This is what I wanted to do. Figure out a way to make it work. And we've the racing part from our standpoint. I think Saturday night stuff is still there. But
yeah,
the stuff on the cup stuff, it's gone away.
Yeah. You know, with all that being said, your years around the sport, working in the sport, if I had to say, Richard Petty, what was your favorite part of working on a car? Were you a better mechanic? You know, would you rather be in the engine room? You know, what did you like to do, and what do you feel like you were good at besides driving? We know you could drive the wheels off.
absolutely.
I was a jack of all trades and really not that good at anything. You know,
Yeah.
There was nothing on the race car that I couldn't do. You know, I grew up working with my dad, so I had to learn to work on the car, whether it was the engine, whether it was rear end, transmission, brakes, you know, everything you had to learn. So when I started driving, I still worked on my own car. And so in the wintertime back then, you just had one car. And at the end of the season, you'd trade it off somewhere and get enough money to buy you another car to make a race car out of it. So the guys in the shop always said, okay, you tell us, you know, what you want us to do, but you do most of it. You do the figuring out whether you want this or that, because you got to drive the cotton picking thing. So, you know, I did a lot of work, but I had a bunch of people to bounce it off of that told me whether it was right or wrong.
People.
Hey,
I had to build all my outfits, Richard, and my mother, we'd cut them out of a newspaper and we'd save all of our material because you can't fit me. I mean, you know, it's like fitting a race car. So she had to make my stuff for me, and she'd make me a pretty outfit for every race. But we did it by scrap and cutting out a newspaper and building it for ourselves. That's how I had those pretty outfits.
So you did a lot of your own sewing, Linda?
My mother did. I did some of it. I mean, I
Yeah.
can use a sewing machine, but my mother was the seamstress, and she'd always make things that the guys liked.
Yeah.
Mother made my first racing uniforms, stuff like that. So
Yeah, well, my understanding is we only have a couple more minutes and we need to
Yeah.
wrap this up.
all right,
Richard has
we can
something
do
to
it.
do.
We gotta go.
Thank
Yeah,
you
we
so
gotta
much,
go.
Richard.
Richard, I love you. I love you, Jeff. And
Yeah,
I
thank
think-
you, Linda.
And I'll always be there for
Miss you
y'all.
all every week, okay?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you,
Yeah.
Happy
Richard.
holidays.
Merry Christmas,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you
I'll
very
promise
much.
you.
Thank you.
Registering on EPARTRADE is easy. To start, click on the Join for Free button on the homepage. First, search your company to see if it's already in our database. If you see your company on the list, click on it to select it. Then, choose Claim Company if you are one of the decision makers, an owner, marketing person, or main company contact. Or choose Join Company if you are an employee, and press Continue. If you couldn't find your company in our database, select Register a New Company. On the following page, fill out your name, email, phone number, job title, and choose a secure password. If you chose Register a New Company, you'll need to choose your business type. Select Supplier if you're looking to display products or services and connect with buyers. Choose Racing Business if you're looking to source new parts and connect with suppliers. Choose Race Team if you own or are a member of a professional race team. Then, enter your company name. Please provide a website, Facebook page, or LinkedIn if you have one, and choose to either claim or join the company. You can view and agree to our terms of use here. If you'd like to receive our weekly newsletter, choose Accept. Finally, click Register Now and your registration will be submitted for approval. An email will be sent to your inbox. Please confirm your email address and you will be approved shortly. Welcome to EPARTRADE.